Welcome to Neon Primer Marketing. In this series, Vega and Axon break down exactly how founders build AI content systems that run without them.
It's kind of funny how we actually think about automation these days.
Oh, totally.
I mean, when you buy a piece of enterprise software or, even just download an app, there's this implicit promise of permanence.
Right. The whole set it and forget it thing.
Exactly. You set it up, you toggle your preferences, maybe you integrate an API, and then it's just, well, it's supposed to work forever.
Just invisible in the background.
Yeah, just operating in the background, making your life easier. But what if that exact mindset, that whole set it and forget it attitude, is literally the thing destroying your company's AI integrations?
It's a huge problem.
It really is. So today we are unpacking this radical and honestly kind of jarring mindset shift. We've got this fascinating set of notes and research for today's deep dive. And the core premise is just, well, it's that founders need to stop treating AI like software tools.
Yeah, and start treating them like actual human hires.
Yes, which is such a massive paradigm shift.
It really is a massive shift.
Yeah.
And I mean, the stakes are incredibly high right now for anyone building a business. The notes we're looking at, they expose this huge trap that is just quietly bleeding companies of time and money and, momentum.
Right.
Because right now, the standard operating procedure is basically to treat a large language model like a fancy new plumbing fixture.
Right, like pipes.
Exactly. You connect the pipes, you turn the valve, and you just assume the water will flow. But, nobody expects to have to go into the walls every single week and teach the pipe how to carry water again.
Yeah, that would be insane. And I think that brings us to the fundamental difference between how we interact with a tool versus, a team member.
Yeah.
Because this entire framework hinges on this one idea that you do not manage a tool.
Right. You just use it. Most founders, they frame their AI agents purely as utilities. They'll build a custom GPT or like an automated workflow, and they think this is faster process or this is just a better search function.
They view it as a static object.
Exactly. But that framing is fundamentally flawed. Because an AI agent operating in a dynamic business environment, it isn't static at all. It's highly reactive.
So it's moving.
Yes. So when you frame it as a tool, you basically abdicate management. And as the research points out, nobody manages a tool. You manage a team member.
I was actually trying to visualize this earlier, and it made me think about navigation. Like if you buy a traditional software tool, it's basically like buying a map.
Okay.
A map is static, right? It doesn't change unless you literally take a pen and physically draw on it. But managing an AI, it's much more like navigating a ship using a compass. But the magnetic north is just slowly shifting beneath you.
Oh, that's a really good analogy.
Right. So if you just set your autopilot on day one and you assume magnetic north is going to stay exactly where it was, well, you are going to crash. You have to constantly recalibrate that compass to the shifting environment.
Because if you don't manage it, you won't even realize you're off course until you hit the rocks. That is a perfect way to look at it because it perfectly illustrates the technical mechanism behind what we're talking about here, which the sources call quiet degradation.
Quiet degradation.
Right. The code itself, it doesn't get tired or break in the traditional software sense. I mean, a traditional script, it throws a 404 error when it fails, right? It just stops.
It aggressively tells you it's broken.
Exactly. But AI doesn't stop. It just gets worse.
So let's actually double click on that. How does that literally happen under the hood? Like, why does it degrade if the prompt I wrote 6 months ago hasn't changed a single word?
Well, because LLMs, large language models, they are essentially probabilistic prediction engines.
Right.
They don't actually know things in a human sense.
Nice.
They just predict the next most likely word based on the context they're given. So your prompt might be exactly the same, sure, but the context around it is constantly shifting.
Okay, give me an example of that.
So let's say you built an agent to handle tier 1 customer support. On day 1, it answers questions perfectly based on your product catalog. But say 3 months later, your marketing team launches a new campaign, or the tone of your brand slightly shifts, or maybe you just update your pricing tiers.
Right, so the real-world inputs change.
Exactly. The input data distributions shift. Customers start asking slightly different questions, they use new terminology, and the AI, being a probabilistic engine, it just tries to bridge the gap between those frozen instructions it was given 3 months ago and this new, unexpected input.
And it doesn't know it's confused?
No, not at all. It just predicts the most likely response based on outdated weights and outdated context. And I mean, on top of that, the API provider like OpenAI or Anthropic, they might silently update the underlying model behind the scenes.
Oh, right. So the ground shifts underneath the AI itself.
Yes, that alters its baseline behavior without you even knowing.
So it just confidently hallucinates a policy that no longer exists.
Yes, exactly. It degrades quietly. It's still doing exactly what you told it to do on day one, but what you told it to do on day one is just no longer relevant to day 90.
Wow. If you're listening to this right now and you have like a customer service bot or some Slack automation that you set up back in the fall and you just haven't checked since, you might want to open that dashboard as soon as this deep dive ends.
Oh, for sure.
Because it's probably hallucinating on your company's dime right now.
Oh, absolutely it is.
So, okay, knowing that this quiet degradation is happening everywhere, how do founders actually fix it? Because the notes suggest a starting point that I think a lot of technical people are going to really balk at.
The job titles.
Yes, assigning real formal job titles to your AI agents, not just vague descriptions, but actual literal roles.
Yeah, moving away from the nebulous job description is basically step one. I mean, instead of saying, this is the AI that helps with content, which is incredibly vague, the most durable systems out there use precise titles. You explicitly define it as a content drafter or a lead qualifier or, customer support tier 1.
Okay, I have to push back on this a little bit because to a lot of developers or just practical founders, giving a piece of Python script a corporate job title sounds like, I don't know, corporate cosplay.
Corporate cosplay.
Yeah, like, are we going to start printing Employee of the Month plaques for the server rack? It feels super performative. Does calling it a lead qualifier actually change how the code runs?
It absolutely changes how the code runs, but more importantly, it changes the constraints. Think about this from an MLOps perspective, machine learning operations.
Okay.
If you don't have a specific title, you don't have constraints. I mean, how do you measure the success of an AI that just helps with content?
I guess you can't. You just sort of vibe it. Like writing emails feels faster this week, so I guess it must be working.
Right. It's completely unquantifiable. You're just guessing. But how do you measure the success of a lead qualifier?
Well, that one is easy. I look at how many raw leads came in, how many the AI successfully processed, and then what percentage of those turn into viable, high-quality prospects for the human sales team. Like, I can track that conversion rate.
Exactly. A defined role creates defined expectations. The title forces you, the manager, to define the actual metrics for success.
Oh, I see.
And technically speaking, this actually improves the system prompt itself.
Wait, really? How?
Well, if you tell an AI you are a helpful assistant, the probability distribution of its output is massive. It could literally do anything. But if you tell it, you are customer support tier 1. Your goal is to resolve billing issues under 2 minutes and escalate any technical queries. You have radically narrowed the context window scope.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, the title isn't for the AI's ego, obviously. The title is the functional foundation of its accountability.
You're basically building the bounding box for the AI to operate inside of.
Yes, a bounding box.
And accountability is the exact piece these notes emphasize that most founders are just completely skipping. Which kind of brings us to the actual management part of this key member framework. Because human employees get performance reviews.
Right.
But AI agents apparently almost never do.
They really don't. The typical life cycle we see over and over is, a founder gets inspired, they spend a weekend chaining some APIs together, they get a custom agent working reasonably well, and then they just leave it alone indefinitely to run a piece of the business.
It's like hiring a brilliant Ivy League intern. On their very first day, you bring them into the office, hand them a dense manual, say good luck, and then you literally lock them in a room and never speak to them again for 6 months.
Right, you just walk away.
And somehow, you expect them to produce perfect results that entire time, even as the company launches new products and changes its entire strategy. It is completely absurd when you frame it around a human.
It's totally absurd. And think about what happens to that human intern in the room. They don't just break down and shut off. They start guessing.
They improvise.
Yeah, they start making assumptions based on the outdated information they were given on day one. And in the AI space, this is known as drift. The business logic moves forward, but the prompt remains static.
Okay, so if I have to manage this drift, the research actually outlines a very specific, traditional HR strategy to handle it.
It does. You put the AI on a 90-day probation period.
A 90-day probation period.
Yeah, yes. Just like a new human hire.
I love that.
Yeah.
But practically speaking, what does that actually look like? Am I sitting down for a one-on-one over coffee with the bot every week?
Well, no coffee, but you are checking the work manually at first. According to the framework, for a high-leverage agent, you need to be auditing its outputs weekly.
Weekly.
Weekly. You don't just assume the lead qualifier is qualifying correctly. You actually read the transcripts of its conversations. You analyze the drafts the content drafter is outputting before they go live. You are actively looking for the drift.
Okay, hold on. If I have to sit there and read the transcripts of every single conversation my AI is having every week, haven't I just created a massive new chore for myself?
Well, yeah.
I mean, wasn't the entire point of implementing AI to save me time and take things off my plate?
That is the ultimate illusion of automation right there. You didn't eliminate work. You just shifted the nature of the work.
Shifted it how?
You traded execution for management. Yes, in the first 90 days, it is highly manual. You are shadow testing prompts, you're tweaking the instructions based on where it hallucinates, and you're refining those boundaries. But the goal is to bridge that gap between manual HR management and automated MLOps.
Okay, so how do you make that jump so you don't just, drown in weekly audits forever?
By building evaluation pipelines. They're commonly called evals. Once the agent proves itself manually, you establish what's called a golden data set.
A golden data set.
Right. It's a set of perfect, manually approved interactions. Then you can use another, usually much larger AI model to automatically grade your agent's daily work against that golden data set.
Oh, that's clever.
Yeah. So you transition from checking every transcript yourself to just checking the summary report of the automated evaluations. You move to monthly checks. But crucially, you never stop checking entirely.
Never zero.
Never zero. Because the moment you stop checking, those underlying models update, the customer data shifts, and that quiet degradation just begins all over again.
Okay, so if I'm doing all this right, if I'm building evils, establishing golden data sets, doing manual weekly audits, my plate is getting pretty full just managing the AI I already have.
Oh, definitely.
But the reality of the industry right now is just pure, unadulterated FOMO, fear of missing out. It feels like every Tuesday, a major tech company drops a groundbreaking new model. So how does a founder survive this management overhead when the pressure to constantly add new capabilities is just so high?
Yeah, that is exactly what the notes called the new model trap. When a new model drops that can, suddenly process 2 hours of video natively, the immediate impulse is, we need a video summarizing agent.
Right, immediately.
Even if you run like a B2B accounting firm where video summaries have literally zero impact on your bottom line.
Yeah, it's just the urge to plug in the shiny new capability so you can tell your investors or your competitors that you are, AI driven.
Exactly. And adding capability just because it feels like progress is a massive strategic error. It just creates an illusion of productivity. The framework argues that you have to apply the exact same rigorous logic you use when hiring a human team.
Which is?
You only hire when you are in pain.
Okay. So you only expand the AI team when a specific bottleneck is actively hurting the business.
Precisely. You have to calculate the cost of the bottleneck versus the cost of the management overhead.
Give me an example of that math.
Sure. Let's say your customer support inbox has a 48-hour backlog, right? And that delay is actively costing you canceled subscriptions. That is a measurable bottleneck. You can calculate the lost revenue. Then you look at the time and money required to build, deploy, and actively manage a customer support tier 1 agent.
And if the math works out,
If the cost of the bottleneck is higher than the management overhead, you make the hire.
but you don't just spin up 10 new agents because the technology allows it.
No, because remember that probation period we just talked about. Every single agent you add is a new digital employee that requires weekly audits, golden data sets, and evaluation pipelines.
Oh, wow.
If you add 10 agents just for the sake of having them, you have literally just given yourself 10 new direct reports. You will absolutely drown in management overhead for tools that aren't even solving critical business problems.
That is such a clarifying lens. Like, you aren't just adding lines of code, you are adding a recurring management burden to your calendar.
Exactly.
Which perfectly sets up the final, and frankly, I think the most psychologically fascinating part of this research. The hardest lesson for founders, which is knowing when to fire your AI.
Yeah. Firing your AI, it sounds dramatic, but it is a total operational necessity. If the value the AI returns is less than the cost of maintaining and auditing it, it just has to go.
I really want to dig into the human psychology here, because the research highlights a very specific emotional hurdle, and that's attachment.
Oh, yeah.
Like, why on earth do we get attached to code? Why would a highly logical, data-driven founder keep a broken, hallucinating tool running just because they built it 6 months ago?
Well, because building custom AI solutions, especially in these early days, it requires a massive cognitive lift. It is a classic emotional sunk cost fallacy.
Oh, totally.
I mean, a founder might have spent their weekends learning how to chain different prompts together, wrestling with these undocumented APIs, figuring out all the complex routing logic. They built this intricate Rube Goldberg machine of automation.
Yeah.
And when it finally worked for the first time, it felt like magic.
Oh, I completely get that. You feel like, I don't know, Tony Stark in the cave building the first Iron Man suit.
Exactly.
It is a massive ego boost. You feel like you've just seen The Matrix.
You feel like an absolute genius. But fast forward 6 months, right?
Yeah.
The API costs have doubled. The agent is hallucinating half the time because the business context shifted. And now the founder is spending 3 hours every single Friday just fixing its mistakes instead of actually leading the company.
Wow.
But they won't shut it down because they are emotionally invested in the architecture they built, even though the performance is objectively terrible.
It's almost like the ultimate vanity metric. Having the AI running makes them feel innovative, even if it's literally dragging the company down.
Exactly.
So how do you break that spell? Like, how do you fire something you poured your weekends into?
By completely reframing the act of letting it go, shutting down an underperforming agent is not a failure of your engineering skills. And it is not a failure of your vision.
Right.
It is exactly the kind of routine, unemotional decision a good manager makes constantly.
It's just business.
Pure pragmatism. I mean, if a human employee consistently underperforms, they stop earning their keep. And coaching, or in this case, prompt engineering and adjusting evils, doesn't fix the issue. You let them go.
You don't keep them on payroll just out of nostalgia for their first day.
Right. And you have to apply that exact same ruthless pragmatism to your digital workforce. If the lead qualifier is hallucinating qualifications and wasting the human sales team's time, and the weekly audits just aren't fixing it, you fire the lead qualifier. You delete the code.
Just delete it. It's actually incredibly freeing when you realize you aren't destroying your masterpiece, you're just optimizing your payroll.
Exactly.
Okay, let's take a step back and just look at the whole picture we've painted today, because this really is a complete life cycle for a new era of business.
It really is.
We started with the realization that AI is not a static tool like a map. It's a dynamic system that requires constant recalibration to prevent that quiet degradation.
Yep.
Then we talked about the necessity of assigning specific, measurable titles. So content drafter instead of helpful AI, just so you can define constraints and build actual evaluation pipelines.
Crucial step.
We walked through the 90-day probation period, highlighting how manual audits have to evolve into automated evils to combat drift. And then we explored the discipline of only hiring new AI when a measurable bottleneck actually demands it, rather than just falling for that new model FOMO and drowning in management overhead.
Right.
And finally, we tackled the emotional discipline required to just fire underperforming code when the sunk cost fallacy sets in. The overarching takeaway here is undeniable. You have to manage your AI or your AI will mismanage your business.
That is the harsh reality of the landscape right now.
Yeah.
If we take everything from this framework and push it just one step further into the near future, it raises a really provocative question about where all of this is actually heading.
Oh, I love where this might be going. What's the next frontier?
Well, think about it. If we are now managing individual AI agents exactly like human employees, right, with specific roles, rigid boundaries, and performance reviews,
Yeah.
how long is it going to be until founders have to start managing inter-agent dynamics?
Wait, are you talking about AI office politics?
Essentially, yes. Think about the systems we are building right now. If you have a highly optimized lead qualifier agent whose only metric for success is pushing as many meetings to the calendar as possible,
Okay.
and then you have a separate schedule manager agent whose entire role is to fiercely protect the sales team's time and enforce strict calendar rules.
Oh, man.
Eventually, those two agents are going to clash, their instructions are going to overlap or just directly contradict each other. So the next frontier of business management won't just be auditing an AI's output. It will be mediating disputes and overlapping boundaries between different AI agents trying to do their jobs in the same ecosystem.
That is wild to think about. You're basically going to have to pull two pieces of software into a virtual Zoom room to work out their communication issues because they're conflicting over a calendar invite.
I mean, it sounds like science fiction, but Based on the trajectory we've discussed today, it is the completely logical next step.
Hmm?
Treating them like team members means eventually dealing with team-level friction in the system.
That is a fantastic thought to leave you all with today as you look at your own tech stacks. Remember, if you aren't actively managing your AI and recalibrating it as your business shifts, you are just letting a very fast, very expensive intern guess what you want them to do in the dark.
Perfectly said.
If you want help running this audit on your own stack, that is exactly what we do. neonaliens.com.